In 1983, Australia hosted a marathon that required the participants to run over 550 miles. The race takes days to complete. When one of the participants, a man named Cliff Young, showed up at the registration table, well, people thought he must be coming for someone else because he was wearing overalls and work boots, and nothing about Cliff screamed, "I'm a runner." Well, guess who won the race? Of course, it was Cliff. In fact, he beat the other runners by over 9 hours. How did he do that? We'll come back to that in a minute. As believers in Jesus Christ, we have our own races to run in life. I think what's crucial for us to understand is that we can't run in our own strength. We have to learn to be strong in the Lord. Perhaps one of the greatest examples of this is seen in the life of young David. Now, if you're imagining young, meaning he's a little boy, like the Sunday school pictures, no, I'm sorry. He was probably in his mid to late teens. He wouldn't have been over 20 because the rule was if you were 20 or over, you served in the army. But we don't think that he was older than 20. But, well, what exactly happened? Put your sandals on with me and let's put ourselves into the text. The nation of Israel was at war against the Philistines, and David's father Jesse had sent him to check on his older brothers who were soldiers and to bring some food and bring back a report of the battle. Now, when David arrived, it was a kind of a key moment in the day. Now, what would happen back then, it doesn't necessarily make sense in terms of today's modern warfare, but what would happen back then is that the two armies would come down the hillside, and they would line up kind of along the edge of the valley, and they would taunt each other. They would shout out insults. "You're ugly and your mama dresses you funny." Or, you call that a sword? My butter knife is bigger than that. Of course, I'm kidding, but they would stand there until a champion would emerge from the line. And the champion would come out, and the champion would issue a challenge. Send out your greatest warrior to fight me. Now, the Philistines sent out Goliath. Goliath was over 9 feet tall. And Scripture tells us that he wore an armor of bronze. Now, we think of silver, and it reflects light and all that, and that's powerful looking, but bronze would have kind of had that glow effect to it, in addition to reflecting the light. So you've got this 9 foot tall, glowing warrior coming out and challenging you. And as we know, no one was willing to do it. It should have been Abner, who was Saul's cousin, but he was the commander of the Israelite army. So he should have been the one to say, "Okay, I will fight." But he didn't, and no one did. So David is there, and he's listening to this challenge, and so he starts asking questions. One of the questions was, "Well, what's the reward for doing this?" His brothers started to mock him, but David was wondering, is there some sort of incentive? Is there something that could perhaps tempt someone to go and fight Goliath? Kind of like a sales thing today. You get a bonus if you sell the most of whatever the product is, or whatever it might be. But David's like, what's the incentive? Now, his brothers, as I said, were mocking him, but Saul hears about it, and Saul asks David to come and see him. And they have a conversation, and honestly, we don't know why Saul didn't say, "Look, you're too young, kid, go away." But Saul even said, "Why don't you try on my armor?" And David said, I haven't fought in this. I haven't tested it. I don't know your armor. It's not the right fit for me. And so David went out and he fought Goliath. Now, when Goliath saw him coming, Goliath got a little angry. Goliath is like, "Look, am I a dog that you're coming at me with the sticks?" And David replies to him in 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 45. David says to the Philistine, "You come to me with a sword and with a spear and with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied." Now we know how the story ends, don't we? David pulls a stone out of his bag, he puts it in his sling, and Goliath, well, he drops like a rock. Pun intended there. That's it, though. One guy, one stone, one God. And that's the key. It wasn't the guy. It wasn't the stone. It was, and it still is, God, the one true God. Our calling, as Paul wrote to the Ephesians, Be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. As Paul continued to write that letter to the Ephesians, he listed out the armor that we can put on. But again, it's not our armor that we're putting on. It's God's armor. It's God's truth. It's God's righteousness. It's God's peace. All of the things are God's. We are to put them on and keep going. And that's the thing with Cliff. You remember Cliff? I told you about him at the beginning. He won the race not by being the strongest or the youngest or the fastest. Cliff won because he didn't stop. For more than 5 days, while others would run most of the day and then they would stop and they would sleep for a little bit. Well, Cliff didn't. Cliff kept going. He didn't sleep. He just kept going until he crossed the finish line. He just kept going. May we be strong in the Lord. May we trust in God's strength. May we keep going. May we keep pressing forward.